Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
This time, we're going to get into cybersecurity,
Ooh, yeah.
which, it seems like every single day
Yeah.
there's some news story about a new data breach or some company got hacked or,
Right.
individuals are having their identity stolen.
Absolutely.
It's kind of scary out there. So
Yes.
we're going to explore session audits today and how those play into keeping our data safe, and also kind of take a deep dive into how the whole world of password security is evolving.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start because you're right. Those headlines are everywhere.
Yeah.
And it can definitely feel overwhelming. Like, where do you even begin?
Yeah.
So, session audits, it's a good place to start.
Okay, so let's break that down a little bit. One of the sources that we have for this deep dive defines a session audit as the process of examining and assessing activities that take place during a user or computer session in order to guarantee operational integrity, security, and compliance. So what does that actually mean? Is it like a detective looking at a crime scene, but it's like digital?
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Basically, every time you interact with the system, you're leaving a digital trail.
Okay.
And a session audit lets security teams follow those breadcrumbs. Like you said, reconstruct events, identify anything that looks out of place. It's not just about reacting to a breach after it happens. It's about having the tools to spot potential problems
Right.
before they become a major headache.
Gotcha. So like if I go on my work computer and download a bunch of files, but then never access them, is that something that a session audit would pick up? Or like what if I try to log in from a different country? Would that be flagged?
Exactly. Those are the kinds of red flags that session audits can catch. And what's really cool is that it helps establish a baseline
Okay.
of what's considered normal user behavior. So once you know what's typical, anything that deviates from that really jumps out.
Okay.
Even if it's not a full-blown attack.
I s-
And, one of the sources mentioned how frequent audits of sessions offer valuable insights into user behavior patterns.
Right.
And that information can actually be used for security awareness training. So instead of just generic advice, you're getting training.
Oh, that's really smart.
That's tailored to actual risky behaviors that people are doing
Yeah.
in your organization.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
hmm
Okay, so that's session audits, but what about, some of those core security measures we've all been taught for years, like
Yeah.
passwords? Change them regularly, make them complex.
Yeah.
Is that really enough in this day and age?
Honestly. It's kind of like changing the locks on your house, but leaving all the windows wide open.
Okay.
Password rotation, it has its place.
Right.
And we'll get into the history a bit later.
Yeah.
But it's just not a complete solution anymore, especially with how sophisticated cyber attacks have become.
So what's the alternative? I've heard a lot about this, MFA? Multi-factor authentication. Is that really as good as it sounds?
Absolutely. Think of MFA as like an extra layer of security
Okay.
for your account. So even if someone steals your password,
Yeah.
they can't get in without that second factor. It's like having, a deadbolt on your door
Gotcha.
in addition to the regular lock.
So are there different kinds of MFA?
There are actually, yeah. Each has its own pros and cons. Like,
Yeah, I've always wondered about like those one-time codes that websites send to your phone. Is that really safe? What if somebody hacks my phone or intercepts that message?
so that's using SMS as your second factor.
Okay.
And it is better than nothing, for sure. But you're right, there are vulnerabilities. That's why a lot of security experts consider app-based authentication more secure.
Okay.
So you use an app on your phone, it generates a unique code every 30 seconds or so.
Okay.
And the good thing is, it's not reliant on your cell service being secure, so it's much harder to intercept.
Oh, so it's like a little mini password generator right in my pocket.
Exactly.
I see. So what about those little key fobs that some people use?
Oh yeah, those are hardware tokens.
Okay.
And they offer even stronger security because they're not connected to the internet at all. It's like a physical key that you need to physically have to get in.
Yeah.
But they can be a little less convenient
Yeah.
for every day.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's all about finding the right balance of security and convenience,
Exactly.
depending on, what level of risk you're comfortable with. So we've talked about MFA.
Yeah.
Our sources also mention password managers
Yes.
as a way to improve security.
Yeah.
How do those work exactly?
Password managers are a fantastic tool.
Okay.
Let's be honest. Creating and remembering a super strong password for every single account is like a nightmare.
It's impossible.
It is. So a password manager takes care of that burden. It generates and stores these unique, super complex passwords for all your accounts. And all you need to remember is one master password.
So it's like a digital bodyguard?
For your passwords. Gotcha.
Keeps them safe. That kind of leads me to another question. What about some of these more futuristic technologies I've heard whispers about, like behavioral biometrics?
Right.
And passwordless authentication. Is that just science fiction, or is there something to that?
Well, it might sound like science fiction,
Yeah.
but it's closer than you think. Behavioral biometrics, that analyzes how you interact with your device. So things like your typing speed,
Oh, wow.
how you hold your phone, even your scrolling patterns.
That's wild.
It creates this unique profile of your behavior.
Okay.
So any deviation from that norm, red flag,
So it's like a digital fingerprint, but
Yeah,
of your behavior.
pretty much.
Wow. And then passwordless authentication, is that like even possible? I mean, how would you prove it's you?
It's still an evolving field,
Okay.
but there are some pretty promising approaches. Some rely on biometrics, like
Yeah.
fingerprint scanning, facial recognition. Others use hardware tokens or cryptographic keys that only you possess. The goal is to verify your identity without needing to rely on something like a traditional password, which can be easily compromised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. It sounds like the world of password security is changing really fast.
It absolutely is.
And while we've got these like really cool
Right.
new technologies coming out, traditional methods like password rotation, they still have a role to play, right?
They do.
Yeah.
Especially when you integrate them with these other security strategies. Think of it this way. Just because you have a really awesome high-tech alarm system in your house,
Yeah.
you probably still lock your doors, right?
Right. It's like having multiple lines of defense.
Exactly, yeah. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
And when you combine password rotation with things like MFA and password managers,
Yes.
you really start to like build a strong security foundation.
Absolutely. It's all about layers.
Yeah. So I guess to sum up what we've talked about so far, it sounds like cybersecurity is not a set it and forget it thing.
Right.
It's something you have to stay on top of all the time, right?
Absolutely. You got to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Because the threats we're facing, they're constantly evolving.
Right.
So we have to be proactive, we have to be informed, and we always have to be ready to change our strategies.
Speaking of being informed, our sources mention some specific tools and systems that companies can use to improve their cybersecurity posture. Can you walk us through a few of those?
Of course. We've already talked about password managers. Those are essential for both individuals and businesses.
Right.
Popular ones. You got LastPass, Dashlane, 1Password.
Okay.
Those generate strong passwords, store them securely, makes it a lot easier to manage your online presence.
And then for businesses, there are, what are they called? The Identity and Access Management Systems.
Yes, IAM systems.
IAM.
They are critical for controlling who has access to what within a company. They can enforce those password policies, implement MFA, even automate password rotation. So it's kind of like a central command for managing all that user access and permissions.
Okay, gotcha. Popular examples of those.
You got Arcta, Microsoft Azure Active Directory.
Okay. And then for those organizations that are really, really serious about monitoring all their security data, there are the Security Information and Event Management Systems.
Yes, SIEM systems.
SIEM, what do those do?
SIEM systems are like the security cameras of the digital world. They collect and analyze all the security logs from different sources, which allows organizations to detect and respond to threats as they happen in real time.
Okay.
And they can even work with those password management solutions to keep an eye on those password-related events and spot potential breaches.
So, like, what are some popular SIEM systems?
Two big ones are Splunk and IBM Curator.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how much technology is being developed just to help organizations, stay safe.
It really is.
But with all of these tools and strategies we've talked about, it can feel a little overwhelming. Like, where do you even start?
It can.
What's the best way for individuals and companies to kind of navigate this world of cybersecurity?
The most important thing, have a plan. You need a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy.
Okay.
Outlines your goals. What are your most valuable assets? What's your risk tolerance? Don't just wait for something bad to happen.
Right.
You got to be proactive. Have a plan in place.
So it's like you need a roadmap
Yes.
for cybersecurity.
Exactly. A well-defined strategy. It guides your decisions.
Okay.
Helps you prioritize what you need to focus on.
Makes sense.
And once you have that strategy, you can start layering in those security measures.
Right.
From the basics like password hygiene to more advanced stuff like adaptive authentication
Right.
or those SIEM systems.
And just like staying informed, knowing about the latest threats,
Yeah.
knowing about like the best practices for cybersecurity.
Absolutely. It's like you got to learn the rules of the road
Yeah.
before you get behind the wheel.
Right. Good analogy.
Yeah.
So, big picture here, cybersecurity, it's not a one-time fix. It's an ongoing process.
It is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Requires constant vigilance, got to be adaptable, and always willing to learn
Absolutely.
and evolve your approach.
So we've covered a lot today.
Oh,
Session
right.
audits, the limits of password rotation,
Right.
rise of some really impressive and sometimes futuristic
Yeah,
sounding
yeah.
authentication methods. And I
Yeah.
think one of the biggest takeaways here is we need to change how we think about cybersecurity.
Mhm.
It's not about building walls, it's about creating this dynamic, multi-layered
Yes.
defense system
I couldn't agree more.
to keep our data safe.
And to really drive that point home, I'd love to leave our listeners with a question.
Oh, yeah.
Given how quickly technology evolves, what do you think is going to be the next big breakthrough in cybersecurity?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Beyond passwords, beyond these conventional authentication methods.
It's like we're trying to predict the future.
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to think about that one. And for you listening,
Yeah.
we hope you found this deep dive informative and insightful,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
I hope so.
Remember, in the world of cybersecurity, knowledge is power. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe out there.
Absolutely. And never stop asking questions.
And that wraps up another deep dive.
Yes, it does.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep those digital defenses strong.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
So before we got sidetracked talking about the future of cybersecurity,
Right.
we were getting into this idea of adaptive authentication.
Yes,
It sounds pretty futuristic.
it is pretty cool.
Can you give me an example of like what that actually looks like in action?
Okay, so imagine you're logging into your bank account, right? Like you do every day from your home computer. Adaptive authentication might just ask for your password
Okay.
because it recognizes that pattern.
Gotcha.
But let's say you try to log in from a coffee shop
Mm-hmm.
on a device you've never used before. Suddenly the system is like, hold on, this is a little risky,
Yeah.
and might ask you to enter a code
Okay.
that gets sent to your phone, for example.
So it's like having a security guard who knows your routine and only steps in when something seems off.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the location and device. Adaptive authentication systems can consider a whole bunch of factors.
Okay.
Time of day, your typical browsing habits, all sorts of things.
Oh, wow.
And, like our sources were saying, this helps strike that balance
Right.
between security and user friendliness.
Right.
You only get hit with those extra security measures when there's, a real need.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
It's much smarter than just having like blanket security for everybody all the time.
Right, exactly.
But with all of these advancements, what happens to those older methods like password rotation? Is that just like completely obsolete now?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
While it's true that on its own password rotation isn't enough anymore, it can still be a useful piece
Okay.
of a larger security strategy. It's kind of like just because you have a state-of-the-art alarm system in your house, you probably still lock your doors.
Right, that's a good point. You're not going to just leave your house wide open
Yeah,
because you
good.
have a fancy alarm.
Exactly, yeah. It's all about those multiple layers of defense.
Right, yeah, not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And when you combine password rotation
Mm-hmm.
with MFA,
Yeah.
password managers, that's when you start to build a really strong security posture.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So if we were to kind of like summarize the key takeaways here, it sounds like cybersecurity is not a one and done kind of thing.
No,
It's all about staying ahead of the curve, right?
absolutely.
Always learning, always adapting.
You can't just set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Complacency, that's the biggest enemy.
Right.
The threats are constantly changing, so you have to be proactive and informed and just always willing to change our approach.
Well, speaking of staying informed,
Yes.
our sources do mention specific tools and systems that organizations can use to strengthen their cybersecurity. Can you walk us through a few of those?
Of course. We've already touched on password managers. Those are crucial.
Yeah.
Some popular ones, you got LastPass, Dashlane, 1Password. They all generate those strong passwords, store them securely. So much easier to manage all your accounts online.
Yeah, those are super helpful.
Yeah.
And then what about for companies? There are those, I think they're called Identity and Access Management System.
Yes, IAM system.
IAM.
Yep, those are critical for controlling who has access to what
Right.
within an organization.
Makes sense.
Yeah. They can enforce those password policies, implement MFA, even automate password rotation. It's like that central command center for all your users and permissions.
Gotcha. What are some well-known examples of those systems?
You got Okta, Microsoft, Azure Active Directory. Those are two of the big ones.
Okay. And then for those organizations that are really serious about security,
Right.
there are those, I always get this acronym wrong, the Security Information and Event Management System?
Yes, SIEM systems.
SIEM, okay.
Yeah.
What are those?
Those are like the security cameras of the digital world. They collect and analyze all those security logs from different sources
Okay.
so that organizations can detect and respond to threats in real time.
So they're constantly monitoring everything that's happening.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
And they can even integrate with password management solutions to monitor for any password-related events, spot potential breaches.
That's really interesting. What are some examples of those systems?
Two of the big names are Splunk and IBM QRadar.
Gotcha. So it's kind of amazing how much technology is out there to help keep organizations safe.
Right.
It can also feel kind of overwhelming.
Right.
Where do you even start?
It can be overwhelming, yeah. The most important thing is to have a plan.
Okay.
You need a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy.
Okay. So, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Well, it should outline your goals. Identify your most valuable assets, assess your risk tolerance,
Okay.
Don't just wait for something bad to happen.
Right.
Be proactive, have that plan in place.
So it's like a roadmap for cybersecurity instead of just wandering around aimlessly.
A well-defined strategy.
Right.
It guides your decisions, helps you prioritize your efforts.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And once you have that strategy in place,
Right.
you can start layering in those security measures.
Exactly.
Like the basics, password hygiene, all the way to, adaptive authentication and SIEM systems.
Absolutely.
And then just staying informed, right? Learning about those latest threats.
Absolutely. It's like learning the rules of the road before you get behind the wheel.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
Yeah, make sure you know what you're doing out there.
So I guess the big takeaway here is cybersecurity is not a one-time thing.
No.
It's a
journey. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah, you got to constantly be working at it.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, it requires constant vigilance, adaptability, willingness to learn, willingness to adapt.
Always evolving.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about session audits,
Right.
limitations of password rotation, and the rise of these really impressive and, in some cases,
Right?
futuristic-sounding authentication methods.
It's an exciting time to be in cybersecurity.
It really is. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from our conversation today is that we need to change how we think about cybersecurity.
Yes.
It's not just about building walls. It's about
being proactive.
creating this dynamic, multi-layered defense system.
Exactly. Defense in depth.
Keep our data safe.
And to really drive that point home, I'd love to leave our listeners with a question.
Okay, hit me.
Given how quickly technology changes, what do you think is going to be the next big breakthrough in cybersecurity?
Ooh.
Beyond passwords,
Okay.
beyond these conventional authentication methods.
That is a great question. I'm going to have to think about that one. And for you listening,
Yes.
we hope you found this deep dive informative and insightful, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
I hope so.
Remember, in the world of cybersecurity, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe out there.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
We'll be right back after a quick break. Okay, so we're back, and before the break, you really got me thinking about that question. What's the next big thing in cybersecurity? What could possibly come after all these very advanced methods we've talked about?
Right. It's almost like trying to predict the future. But if we look at the trends we're seeing today, I think one thing that really stands out to me is the potential of AI and machine learning in cybersecurity.
AI, like artificial intelligence for cybersecurity.
Exactly.
That sounds really, really cutting edge.
It is.
How would that even work?
Well, think about it. Organizations today, they collect so much data.
Right.
Network traffic, user activity logs, security alerts.
Yeah, tons of it.
Mountains of data, way too much for humans to go through effectively.
It would take forever.
So that's where AI comes in. AI systems can analyze all that data. They can look for patterns, anomalies,
Okay.
things that might indicate a threat.
So it's almost like having a digital detective with like
Yeah.
superhuman pattern recognition abilities,
Oh.
just constantly scanning for any sign of trouble.
24/7.
But even if AI can see those patterns,
Right.
doesn't somebody still need to make sense of it? Like, what does it actually mean?
You're absolutely right. AI is a powerful tool, but it's not a magic solution.
Yeah.
Human expertise is still essential.
Right.
Security professionals, they need to be able to interpret those insights that the AI provides, connect the dots,
Okay.
and make judgment calls about how to respond.
Yeah.
It's really a partnership
Yeah.
between human and machine.
So it's not about replacing humans. It's about like
Right.
enhancing what they can already do.
Augmenting their capabilities.
Yeah, exactly. So what else is out there? What else is coming down the pike?
Another really interesting area is behavioral biometrics.
Okay.
We touched on this earlier, but I think it really has the potential to revolutionize authentication.
Okay.
Imagine a system that's constantly monitoring your behavior,
Right.
how you type, how you move your mouse, how you use your phone to verify your identity. It's much, much harder to fake those subtle behavioral patterns
Yeah, for sure.
than it is to steal a password or even, copy a fingerprint.
Yeah, that is incredible. It really is.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that be kind of invasive? Like constantly having your behavior monitored, that seems
The valid concern.
yeah, a little creepy.
Yeah. Privacy is a crucial consideration.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
think the key here is transparency
Okay.
and user control.
Yeah.
People need to understand exactly how their data is being used
Right.
and be able to opt in or opt out.
So it's all about finding that balance again.
As always.
Between security and privacy.
Yeah, it's a constant balancing act.
Like with any technology, really.
Exactly. And as these technologies keep evolving,
Yeah.
I think we'll see a lot more focus on user-centered design.
Oh, yeah.
Security solutions, they can't just be effective.
Right.
They got to be user-friendly, they got to be intuitive.
If it's too complicated, no one's going to want to use it.
Exactly. And if it's too complicated or annoying,
Yeah.
people are going to try to find a way around it,
Yeah.
even if it means putting their security at risk.
Which totally defeats the purpose.
All right. Exactly.
Well, it seems like we're at like a really pivotal moment
Yeah.
in cybersecurity.
A lot of exciting changes happen.
We've got all these incredible new technologies,
Yeah.
but there are also those, ethical considerations, social implications to think about.
Absolutely. Cybersecurity, it's not just a technical issue anymore.
You're right.
It's a societal issue.
Mm.
And it requires all of us to think about the balance between security, privacy, and individual freedom.
Right. It's a much bigger conversation than just,
It is.
people in the tech world talking about it.
We all need to be part of this conversation.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
I'm glad to hear that.
We went from the details of session audits
Yeah.
all the way to the mind-blowing potential of AI and
Yeah.
behavioral biometrics.
It's been quite a journey
It really has.
through the world of cybersecurity.
And for you listening, we hope you found this deep dive informative and insightful and, maybe even a little bit inspiring.
I hope
Remember, in the world of cybersecurity, knowledge is power.
it really is.
Stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe out there.
And never stop asking questions.
That wraps up another deep dive.
It does.
We hope you enjoyed the exploration.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep those digital defenses strong.
See you next time.